Hello everyone and welcome back. Let's start from where we left off last time. So in the previous video, we had completed this dashboard or the start page, which has a carousel of all the different snippets. Plus we also implemented the search functionality, sort functionality, and filter by STK functionality. And where we left off was, if you click on any one of the snippet, it takes you to a new snippets details page, where at the moment it is not showing anything. It's an empty page with just a label in it. So let's actually go and look at this page. So this is, let this open. Yeah, so this is a simple page, nothing in it. Let me clean this up a bit. This is what we are going to be working today, and we are going to add functionality to this. What I will also do, I will remove this default label which comes out of the box so that we get a clean view to start with. Okay, now let's proceed. One of the things that we did in the previous call, in the start page view model, we had implemented the navigation functionality. So here we implemented a command which just navigates to the snippet details page and passing in the snippet which is to be displayed on this particular page. So before we work on this page, let's actually work on the view model. So this is the empty view model that we have at the moment. There is nothing, we did not implement anything. So let us actually go ahead and start implementing. So the first thing we need to do is we need to derive this from the app view model base class, the one that we created, and now it is complaining that we need to implement the default constructor. So let me go ahead and implement the constructor. This is the default constructor. We are not going to do anything in this constructor. It's just going to be an empty constructor. But what we will be doing is we will be overriding our on navigated to page. This is the function that gets called from the view or the page itself. So in the view base or the base page, we implemented a functionality where we auto wire the view model to the page. That again we will see, and the moment the page starts appearing, it will call this function at the time of appearing itself. So this is where we can do some functionality. Now what we will do, first of all, we will go ahead and we will add a snippet property. So we need to change this to partial since I'm using source generation. So here I'm just saving the snippet. So if we go back to our view model again, the start page view model, you noticed we are going to snippet details page and we are passing in the snippet. And if we go to our start page backend, sorry, the snippet details page backend, we are passing in this snippet. So at the time when the on appearing is called in this page, this on navigated to will be called, passing in this parameter. So at this stage, what I can do, I can save this value. So this is actually a snippet. So I can save this parameter, parse it as a snippet and store this over here. And then what I can do, I can set the page title to this snippet's page title, the snippet dot title. So I can set this to this title. Now with this, let's go back to our start page and let's start fixing some of the things. Now one of the things we need to do is we need to derive this from the view base as we were doing earlier. So instead of the content page, we need to derive this from the view base, and this takes in the snippet details page view model. And here the only additional thing we need to do is that this expects us to call the base page constructor, passing in this parameter that we just received. So that's all the change that we need to do. In the start page, since we were not passing any parameter, we did not need to call this base page, the base pages constructor. But in this particular case, we need to pass it because this snippet is what is going to get passed over here. Now in the page itself, we need to replace this with this content page with the view base now. So I'm going to make my life easier. I'm just going to go over here to the start page and I'm going to copy some of the things rather than seeing me typing everything. So this is going to be a quick one. So let me bring in some of these things. I need all of these namespaces. So let's go ahead, bring in this namespace. In the type arguments, instead of start page view model, I'm going to replace this with my snippet details page view model. And the other thing we are going to bring in is this information. So let's paste this over here. So page title is coming from the title which is being set in the view model itself. We are going to use the navigation bar, and instead of the menu page we are going to use the navigate page so that we can see the back button displayed. And for the content itself, let me bring in this guy over here. This is where we are going to put in our content, and in this, for the time being, I'm just going to put an empty grid, nothing in it, just an empty grid. That's it. And one additional thing I am going to do in my page itself, let me go to my page. I am also going to go and set the background color of this page to the light gradient color related to each of the snippet type. For example, for .NET MAUI, I'm using, let me show it to you. For example, over here for the .NET MAUI, I'm using lighter background, lighter purple background, and for Xamarin, I'm using the peach, going from dark peach to light peach, and for MAUI, going from dark purple to light purple. So what I'm going to do, based on this built with property of the snippet that we have, I am going to use the converter that we created earlier. So I'm going to use the end color converter, and this is the one which we will use to give the background color as light color. So with this one, let us actually go and run our application and see this in action. So here the application is loading up. So if we have done everything right, at least our base framework should be ready. Let me just click on this first one. So you can see now we have the back navigation icon and we have the title of the snippet. And if I click on this, it takes us to the back page. If I go to any one of them, it shows us, and I don't know if you can see very slightly, it is showing a light peach color in the background. But if I go to the MAUI snippets, it is showing a very, very light purple color in the background. So this part is working. So now while we are at this subject, before we create the content for our page, let's implement the share functionality. So I showed you earlier that we had this functionality wherein, let me actually run the older version, the fully working version. So if I go to any particular application and if I click on this share icon and let me choose reminders, so it displays a very nice message saying, hey, I found this amazing snippet. This is the name of the snippet. You should check this out at this location. This is the GitHub URL, and give the star to the author name for this amazing work. So let's actually go ahead and implement this as well. So for this, I am going to rely on the page icons that we created, the placeholder. So here I'm just putting one icon, which is the share icon, and I'm binding it to the share snippet command from my view model. So we do not have that. Let me copy that and let's go over here and let's implement this. So this is going to be a relay command, private async task, and this is where we can implement the functionality. So to implement the functionality, I can say where text to share equal to some text for the time being, and then using the share request functionality, which was earlier part of the Xamarin Essentials, but now it has been brought into .NET MAUI itself. So I can share this. What I can do, I can say await share dot request async, and it has to be a new share text request, shared text request, and the parameters that it takes is, so I need to set two of the things. So one is the title I can set. So my title will be my snippets title. So whatever is the title, and the text that I want to display is my text to share property that I created. So using this, I can share something. Let me run this and show this to you. And this is where we are going to put in a little bit more details, which I will be showing you in a while. So let this application build. Let me click on it. We now have a share icon. If I click on the share icon, you can see a share pop-up comes up. Let me click on reminders to show you the content, and this is the content that we have put in for the time being. So let's actually start building. Let's now start building this content. So let me empty this out, and we should say, hey, I found this amazing snippet, and maybe we want to put in the snippet title. So the snippet dot title, maybe I want to wrap this in quotation marks so that it looks a bit nicer. Let me wrap this, and we say you should check it out at maybe, and now we can provide in the GitHub location. So for the GitHub location, we only have the project handle. So I can say https github.com/, and this is where now I can bring in my GitHub URL from the snippet. So the snippet dot GitHub URI, and give star to the author. Now at the moment we do not have the author name, so we are going to bring this in for this amazing work. Seems like I cannot type today. For this amazing work. And maybe what I can do is I can put in environment.newline, maybe a couple of them perhaps. Let me copy, and then I can put in the snippet description of the snippet. So this is what we can put. So let's actually run this and see if this is working fine. Let the application build and load. So these are the snippets that we have. Let me just pick up this WhatsApp UI clone. Now if I click on this, click on the reminders, here you can see, hey, I found this amazing snippet, and within quotes the name of the snippet. You should check it out at the location. If I click on this location, it will take us to the actual location and give star to the author for the amazing work. And then below that we have the actual description. So in this particular case there is not much description available, so let's pick up something different. Let's try this one. Let's have a look at this, and here you go. You can see whatever the description was, and if I click on this URL that we get, it will take us to I believe I need to add this first, and maybe then if I go to the reminders I will be able to click on it. So let's go to reminders, continue. If I click on this, yes, it takes us, and yes, correctly it opens up the page for us. So this part is working. Now what we need to do is we need to display the author name over here. We do not have the author name. Let me show you the actual running application. In the current application, you see we have the name of the author, which if I go back to my models In the snippet, we do not have the author information over here at all. I don't have the author information because it is not part of the snippet. But what I do have is just the author GitHub handle. And if you remember the main result that we are getting, the snippet result, it is giving me the list of authors as well as the list of snippets. And then for each author, we have the GitHub handle. And based on this GitHub handle, I can actually go and get the first name and the last name. So let's actually do that. First of all, let me define a custom property over here. Let's define a property called full name. And this is, I just need to implement a getter for this, which is going to be first name and space last name. So here at least I can get the full name, but I need to also add it over here. So I can go ahead and I can say public author, and let me call this as author itself. And this is simple get set property, which does not have any information right now. But at least I can go back to, let me close this for simplicity's sake. Let me go back here. At least what I can do, I can replace this with the snippet dot author. Now I have the author property and this has a full name property. So at least I can display something, but there is nothing at the moment. To bring in this information, let's go back to our start page. And while we were loading, so you notice the first thing that we are getting is we are getting this snippets result. And from this snippet results, I was only taking the snippets. I was not taking anything else. What I can do is I can use the, let me show you the snippet dot authors. I can use this to set the author field which I created in my snippet. So let's build in or add a comment set authors in the list, and I can say for all my snippets dot for each of them I need to do something. And what is this? For each of the snippet that I get, I can say snippet dot author. Now this is equal to, I need to get the first object from this snippets from authors list. So the snippet dot authors dot where, and I can implement, I can say author, and I can say where this author dot GitHub handle equals to my snippet dot author GitHub handle, right? I can get this and then I can get the first item from the list. So this is how I can go and I can set the author for each of them. Let me actually go and put it in separate lines so you can see it slightly better. So this is how I can set this. Now if I run the application, you will be able to see that we have got the actual author name also appearing. So if I click on this, chicken patty, share, reminders, now we can see give star to, this is the name of the author, NET. I apologize if I am mispronouncing it. So we have added the functionality for bringing in the author name, and this is the same author name that we will also be using to display in our details page as well. So here we can say Hector Perez. So this is working wonderful. Now let me go ahead and let me close some of these pages so that I clean it up. I do not need much of this information here. I will only need to work on this page. So here what I am going to do, I am going to define my user interface. So in my grid I am going to add 4 rows. So these rows for the time being are the 40 pixels at the top or 40 points, 360 pixels or 360 points to height to display my image, the image of the snippet, then another for 64 pixel where I'm going to do an overlap. I'll show that to you, and then the remaining height at the bottom where I can put in the other details such as the snippet name, snippet description, author name, button to go to the GitHub URL, some other information, let's say the images and so on. Now one thing you will notice, I have defined it in this way. I have not defined it. I could have simply gone ahead and I could have simply said row definitions equal to 48, 360, 64, star. That would have been much more easier for me, but I am doing this for a reason which you will see in a little while. So this is where now we have the information. The very first thing I need to do is I need to bring in the very first row, I need to bring in the information related to the number of GitHub stars that we have and the SDK that it is built using. So for that, let me bring in at the very top this information. So this is, I can use a horizontal stack layout in the first row, and I'm giving a spacing of 16 in between. And here, all I'm doing using border, so I am displaying the snippet built with, and again, I'm using the color converter, the start color converter, to show the background of the snippet, and it is bound using a string format with hash in the beginning. For the star info, again I'm using a border color, and in the label I'm bringing in the number of GitHub stars, and for the string format I am putting a star before the number of the actual star, the star count. So let me run and show this to you how this looks like. So this information is going in row number 0, the very first row that we created. Let me make this smaller in case you want to have a look at the full code. So let's actually go over here. So you can see this is built using Maui, and it is in purple color, and it has 13 stars. If we go to something else, let's say this one is coming in the peach color, built using Xamarin, and it has 291 stars. Excellent. So this is the very first row that we have created where we have put in this information. Now the other thing I'm going to do, first of all I'm going to put in is add a border control, and this is where we will be adding some of the information. So let me bring in a border control. This is the border. I'm giving it a name. You will see in a while, not now, when we implement the parallax effect, I'll be using this name. That's why I've given it a name called main content. This is going into the row number 2, which is 0, 1, 2, and starting from 2, I'm using row span of 2 as well. So I'm taking both of these bottom 2 rows, and I'm giving it some padding inside, giving it some margin, filling the whole thing. And for the background color, again, depending on whether it is Maui or Xamarin, I'm using the start color, which is the darker color for my background. And inside I have nothing, no content. I'm just going to leave it as such, and I have my I'm giving the rounded corner, and I have specifically given 32 pixels for the top right and top left. So let us run this and see this. So let's go ahead, and you can see I have created, this is the effect that I have created. If I go to a Xamarin snippet, so we have this border and this area. Now what I am also going to do is below that, in our row number 1 or grid row 1 or row number 2 actually, which is this big one, this is where I need to add my phone image. And you remember we already created this snippet image in our last video. So let's add this namespace, local controls, and in this one I am bringing in my snippet image. I'm giving it a name, phone image, and I'm putting it in row number 1, and it is spanning 2 rows, which is this 360 plus 64, because I want to overlap it, which you will see in a while. And the image URL is of course the hero image of our snippet. And at the moment, what I have done for the height and width, I have set it to the image height and image width property of my root page. So this is my root page. I have set it to image height and image width property, which if we go back to our snippet details page, we do not have that property yet. So we need to create it. So let's actually go ahead and add these two properties. So it's just two double properties. I'm calling it image height property and image width property, and I am defaulting it to 400 high, 400 points or 400 pixels high, and 188 pixels or 188 points wide. That's all I am doing, nothing else. And with this, now if we go back, that error will go away the moment I save it and recompile this. And let us run this and see how the result looks like. So now if I click on this, this is what we have achieved. So you can see this is 400 height and 188 width. This is the height and width we have set by default, and this is based on also whatever I have specified over here. And this is the 64 pixels, the third row, which I was talking about, that it is overspanning into the third row. So this is how our layout looks like. If I go to Xamarin Snippet, this is how this looks. Now so far this is all looking very good. In the next part, what we are going to do, we will implement the functionality in this bottom part. This is where we will go and define the name of the author, the snippet name, snippet description, and so on. So stay tuned for that. Thank you very much. See you next time.